Winter in World War II was not a backdrop. It was an enemy. From the frozen trenches of the Eastern Front to the snowbound forests of the Ardennes, the cold was as lethal as artillery. Soldiers who failed to shield themselves from wind and frost didn't last long. The men who endured did so by mastering shelter tricks that turned scraps, snow and discipline into life-saving protection. These forgotten techniques are not just history lessons, but practical survival strategies still valuable today, whether for outdoor adventurers, preppers, or anyone fascinated by the endurance of those who fought through brutal winters. Soldiers turned the earth itself into a fortress against the cold. On the Eastern Front, Soviet and German troops dug zemlyankas, earth bunkers reinforced with logs and covered with soil and snow. These shelters were deceptively warm because the earth insulated against icy winds. Soldiers often dug them deep enough to allow a crude stove, making a dugout more habitable for weeks. The same principle applies today in a wilderness survival scenario. Digging into a hillside or snowbank provides natural insulation. Covering a small pit with logs, branches and earth can transform a hole in the ground into a weatherproof refuge, conserving body heat that would otherwise be lost in the open. Snow became a life-saving insulator rather than a threat. Snow caves and trenches were used extensively when soldiers had no other resources. American GIs in the Battle of the Bulge carved foxholes into snowbanks, lining them with branches to stay off the frozen ground. The key was depth and insulation. Snow, full of air pockets, kept warmth in and wind out. For modern application, carving a snow cave or trench large enough to lie in and sealing cracks with packed snow can raise the internal temperature by several degrees, sometimes enough to mean survival through the night. What killed the unprepared saved those who used it correctly. Makeshift roofing turned scraps into protection. When timber and boards were scarce, soldiers scavenged doors, wreckage, or even flattened ration crates to form roofing. They covered these with earth, tarps, or snow to trap warmth. On both fronts, men often layered branches with sod or straw, turning fragile coverings into sturdy, weatherproof barriers. The lesson here is adaptability. In survival, any flat surface can serve as roofing when paired with insulating layers. Even in modern settings, a tarp covered with soil, leaves or snow resists wind and retains warmth far better than the tarp alone. Fires were hidden and managed inside shelters. Smoke gave away positions, so soldiers learned to use small stoves or trench heaters vented through hidden chimneys. The Soviets, really excelled at building stoves from sheet metal and stones, using tiny fires to keep dugouts livable without producing large smoke plumes. Today's takeaway is the concept of micro-fires. A small, well-vented heat source inside a shelter is actually more efficient than a large fire outdoors. Even something as simple as a candle or a tin filled with animal fat can raise temperatures inside a compact shelter. Managing smoke isn't just about stealth, it's also about safety and oxygen control. Raised bedding was a defense against frostbite. The ground, it sapped heat faster than the air. To fight this, soldiers built bedding from spruce boughs, straw or planks raised slightly off the frozen earth. German units often used straw mats in their dugouts, while Soviet soldiers would lay branches thick enough to insulate from frozen soil. Anyone camping or surviving outdoors should remember this principle. Lying directly on the cold ground accelerates hypothermia. Raising yourself even just a few inches on branches, boards, or even a pile of clothing dramatically conserves body heat. Shared shelter multiplied warmth. Crowding into small dugouts was uncomfortable, but it saved lives. Shared body heat in confined shelters reduced the need for fuel. American units in the Ardennes often crammed into foxholes, covering them with canvas and snow for added insulation. The same remains true today. If trapped outdoors in the cold, multiple people in one compact shelter conserve more warmth than individuals spread apart. The soldiers' discomfort proved a calculated choice for survival. You know, camouflage actually doubled as insulation. Shelters had to remain hidden from enemy view, of course, but the branches, snow and soil used for camouflage also worked to keep the cold out. Soviet dugouts covered with pine boughs were nearly invisible, while also shielding those inside against the wind and drifting snow. For survivalists, this really teaches efficiency. When you're building cover, you want to choose materials that both blend in with the surroundings and provide good insulation. A shelter that conceals you from sight also, well, preserves your life. Drainage and airflow were honestly crucial survival details. Without proper drainage, snow shelters or dugouts could quickly become icy traps. Soldiers learned to carve small trenches to direct meltwater away, and to cut ventilation holes to prevent suffocation. Even in the coldest weather, a lack of air circulation could be absolutely fatal. For modern shelter building, this is a reminder. Design for both insulation and airflow. A snow cave with a fist-sized vent hole above head level and a small trench beneath your bedding balances heat with safety. Improvised doors kept warmth inside. Soldiers rarely had proper doors. Instead, they hung blankets, canvas, or even sacks over entrances to block drafts. In dugouts, wooden planks or salvage doors were covered with earth for added insulation. Today, even a makeshift flap of cloth or, a backpack propped across an opening can make a critical difference. The lesson is that sealing a shelter's entrance is just as important as building its walls. Small space shelters were, honestly, warmer shelters. Sprawling dugouts lost heat quickly, so soldiers often built compact bunkers, sometimes barely tall enough to sit in. A smaller air volume heated up faster and, retained warmth longer. Comfort was sacrificed to maximize survival. Modern outdoor survival follows the same principle. Building a shelter only as large as necessary really helps conserve energy and heat. A cramped shelter may be uncomfortable, but honestly, it is far more efficient than a spacious one. The men who fought on the cold fronts of World War II were not only soldiers, but survivalists forced into daily battles against winter itself. Every trick they developed was born out of necessity, tested in conditions harsher than most of us will ever face. Whether digging into the earth, sealing themselves into snow caves, or using scraps to block the wind, they proved that survival hinged on adaptability, resourcefulness, and discipline. For history enthusiasts, these shelters are windows into the endurance of ordinary men in extraordinary circumstances. For survivalists, they are timeless lessons that can still be applied when nature turns against us. If you value keeping these forgotten skills alive and want to uncover more lessons from history that remain relevant today, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share this video so that this knowledge isn't lost to time.